Those senators who voted to gift $40 billion to Ukraine argue that it is in our national security interest. I wonder if Americans across our country would agree if they had been shown the costs, if they had been asked to pay for it. If the supporters of foreign aid for Ukraine had been honest with Americans, they could have instituted a Ukraine war tax. I'm sure it would have been quite popular. By my calculation, each income tax payer in our country would need to pay $500 to support this $40 billion, which by some accounts is a down payment and will need to be replenished in about 4 months. So a $500 tax to every American income taxpayer would pay for this. But that's not the way things are done in Washington. What we do is say, put it on my tab. We don't want to be honest. We don't want to be transparent with the taxpayer. We just add it to the debt. We could have also taken the $40 billion from elsewhere in the budget. We could have said, well, we spend $770 billion on our military, and that $770 billion is more than the next 8 countries combined. We could have taken it out of our military budget. If it's in our national security interest, perhaps it could be a military expenditure. But no, we don't want to tax the people. We don't want them to know that there is a payment or a punishment for this. We don't want to take it from somewhere else where somebody else is getting rich off of this money. No, what we do is we simply borrow it. Put it on my tab is what Congress says. So yes, that's what will happen. So when Americans go to the grocery store, they will pay yet again higher prices. When Americans go to the gas pump, they will spend even more for their gas because there is no free lunch. $40 billion cannot be created out of thin air, although it sort of is by the Fed. But in being created and increasing the demand, it causes inflation. Debt leads to inflation. Now, when the ink is not even dry on the money that we are shoveling out the door for Ukraine, the Democrats are back. I mean, it hasn't been yet an hour. We're still in the same hour that $40 billion was given away to a foreign country. Now that $40 billion is gone, they're somewhere busily with a printing press printing that money up. The ink is not yet dry. Now they want $48 billion more for COVID bailouts. Well, perhaps there was another alternative. Perhaps instead of locking down the economy, which studies now show did not mitigate the virus, did not change the trajectory of the virus, perhaps instead of locking the economy down and ruining businesses, we could have not locked the economy down. That was an alternative, and one that if this ever happens again, we should learn a lesson. The lockdowns did not change the trajectory of the virus. They bankrupted folks, but it's not the answer. The answer isn't to lock down the economy again and just bail people out, because guess what? Almost $6 trillion was spent bailing out the economy. We didn't have it. We didn't have a rainy day fund. You can't go over to the Federal Reserve and open a big safe door and, there's the money. We'll give it to people that we ruined by shutting the economy down. There's no money. We're already $1 trillion in the hole if you just look at our ordinary expenses. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the military, food stamps, a few more social programs. That's the budget. That's $1 trillion short. What comes in, what goes out, we're $1 trillion short, and then in the last 2 years, we borrowed $6 trillion more. Is it any wonder we have inflation? But the other side's not even saying they understand where inflation comes from. They think it's greed. I wouldn't accept that from a 3rd grade class. It's moronic. What do they suppose? Everyone all got together, and the people that control the gas price became greedy last month. Well, that's absurd on the face of it. Greed has nothing to do with this. People are always self-interest. Inflation comes from an expansion of the money supply. M2 is a broad measure of the money supply. The last 3 years, the M2 has been expanding at a 15% annual clip. You cannot expand the money supply at 15% and not get inflation. In January of last year, the M2 was expanding at an annualized rate of 27%. Why? Because we don't have the money to pay for all the stuff we give to people. It's dishonest. It's deceitful. We give people stuff and say, here's free stuff. You don't have to work anymore. We're closing your business down. But here's some money. But we don't have it, so we're going to print it up or borrow it. That's what went on. Over the last 2 years, Congress went on a spending spree. More than $6 trillion was given away. What my colleagues may be shocked to learn is it's never really free. There's no such thing as a free lunch. In fact, lunch actually costs a lot more than it did before. Congress started spending all of this free money. But while the $30 trillion national debt continues to climb, Congress continues to spend. You would think they'd be chastened. We have nearly double-digit inflation out there. You'd think they'd be saying, oh my goodness, we have to quit digging the hole deeper. No, instead, we sent $40 billion out before lunch. They want to send $48 billion more after lunch. Last month, they sent over $100 billion in subsidies out. They doubled the size of one of the most wasteful government organizations we have, the National Science Foundation. So no, they're not chastened. Inflation is caused by borrowing and debt and the Fed monetizing it. So what are they doing in the last 2 months? They're making it worse. After 2 years of running up the taxpayers' credit card by $6 trillion, you'd think they would be beginning to grasp the problem. Small businesses, hardworking Americans simply can't spend any more of the money we don't have. We can't just keep giving away money. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised that Democrats have now come to the realization, or have not come to the realization, that their authoritarian lockdowns and endless spending caused the highest inflation in 41 years. Yet in today's exercise, Democrats want to spend another $48 billion. Where's the emergency? The lockdowns have mostly been ended over the last year, and yet there's this all, hurry up, we must print up more money. The $40 billion we gave to Ukraine's the ink's not even dry, but we got to shovel out another $48 billion. Where is the emergency? There'll be $40 billion in this for restaurants. New grants will go to yachts, yacht clubs, limousine businesses, racket clubs, and luxury gyms. And minor league sports. Oh boy, we have an emergency that we need to get the minor league sports involved with the bailout. While Americans across the country are getting poorer, Americans can't afford to put the gas in their car to go on vacation. Americans are losing income every day. The average American family is paying $100 more every week. $100 more. $5,200 a year is being lost to inflation for the average American family. What are we doing to protect them? I have great sympathy for businesses that were forced to shut down during the pandemic. The lockdowns should never have happened, but we have no evidence that the COVID lockdowns and restrictions altered the trajectory of the virus or saved one life. Petty tyrants to shut down businesses not based on science, but based on a perverted political science. No government check, no passing out of a bailout can beat the operating of the market. The marketplace is the only thing that has created the great wealth of our country and the only thing that can continue to help us. Yet the other side insisted on economic shutdowns only to prop up the market with the taxpayer's wallet and borrowed money. Democrats need to wake up and realize that dumping more money in the economy is simply pouring $5 a gallon gas on an already out-of-control fire. America can be a rising nation again if we let it. The people have had enough with mandates and lockdowns. It's time to end the bailouts and once again let the free market reign again.